host, Rachel Franks. I'm filling in for Alexis today because she is working a softball doubleheader. So football is finally back in Blacksburg as spring practice started on Tuesday. Matei Sis and David Jones were there, and they got the chance to talk to head coach Frank Beamer.
I just think there's something about this football team that's just a little bit different, just a little bit better. And I guess it goes back to some leadership within the team as much as anything. So I'm excited about that. Some guys that did well that have been with us that you might want to talk to later. Augie Conti and Wyatt Teller, offensive linemen, just stellar as far as what we do in strength and conditioning for football. They're off the charts, and they set the level of training a little bit higher for those guys and really for all of the linemen in the room there. So they continued their great work. Chuck Clark as the defensive back is a great leader. He's teamed up with Sam Rogers, and they form a good captain-type leadership within the team. I think they really have set the bar high for all the other guys. And he's a super iron Hokie. He's a guy that's off the chart as well as far as his numbers. Isaiah Ford chose to stay with us rather than play basketball, and I think he benefited from it. He's gotten a lot stronger and really is a great competitor, as we knew, and competed in our room as well. Daddy Nicholas has completely bought in. He sees he's got goals professionally, and he sees that these are ways to get to them, and he continues to improve, and he's just an off the chart. Nigel Williams, defensive lineman, defensive lineman, stalwarts in there. We've had a really good winter. It's been a good spirit. We had a great pre-spring. These guys competed individually on everything that they did. We charted them individually. Might be something worth talking to them about. Some newcomers I do want to mention that really stood out and came in early. These guys, some of them would actually should have been in high school still, and really stood out in our room. Joshua Nightman is the defensive lineman that is just phenomenal. And he is not only that, he's a tremendous competitor too. So I think this guy's potential is very, very high. Carson Linden, a linebacker for Tampa. He's already physically as mature as most linebackers. And he's a smart kid, and I think he'll compete very early, I would bet. Sean Payne was here last year, defensive back, super competitor. Didn't really know how much of a competitor this guy was. His record and all the charting that we did where they were in direct competition was just off the charts. I mean, the guy rarely loses. He refuses to lose. Xavier Burke is a tight end by way of Fort Union that is an exciting athlete. Comes in. These guys are coming in physically more mature than we're used to getting, and they're workers, and they're going to be special, I think.
Marshawn Williams, he's 3 months post-op. He's doing really well. He'll be in a brace. He just got the brace, and that clears him to do some running activities. But he's been a very good worker in there. He hasn't had a bad day, which has been really nice. Him and Shai McKenzie have pushed each other. Shai's a little bit ahead of him because Shai's at the 5-month mark, but both those guys have pushed each other. Brandon Faison, as you guys know, is coming off the fib fracture and surgery. He's 3 months post-op. We're going to be really careful with him this spring. There's no reason to rush him through that. Obviously, he's chomping at the bit to get back out there, but we need to make sure that fracture is healed. Kyle Chung is coming off his second shoulder surgery. He's 2 months post-op. He'll be limited out there in green as well, but he'll do a lot of footwork stuff on the side. In our profession, there's push and pull athletes. The push athletes, you got to push back out there. The pull athletes, you got to pull so they don't hurt each other. And the next person I'm going to talk about, Sam Rogers, like Coach Gentry talked about, is an animal. We have to run him out of the training room, got to turn the lights off and kick him out. He's a guy that we'll have to keep out of spring drills because he will go to the point where he might re-injure himself, and we don't want that to happen because he's doing phenomenal right now. He will miss spring. Hopefully we'll get him back into individual drills, but y'all shoot me if we let him go full before the end of spring. A.J. Hughes had back surgery. He's 2 months post-op. He's doing well. He was showing off out there yesterday that he can touch his toes. He's another one that's chomping at the bit to get out there and start punting, but we're not going to let that happen. Corey Marshall is going to get ankle surgery. He battled that ankle all last year. He will get surgery this week, and he will miss spring ball, but will be full for fall. Luther Matty is 4 months post-op of his cartilage injury in his knee. Another kid that's just doing great. He's another one that has not had a bad day in rehab, and that's tough for a college student to have to put up with all they have to put up with. Come in there and do that, not able to do everything with their teammates. So really proud of what Luther's done and the role he's set in there. Cody Rhodes had ACL surgery. He's 2 months post-op. He's a local kid from Giles. It's also doing great, but obviously will not be out there for spring ball. Joseph Callis, who's a long snapper, had shoulder surgery. He's only a month post-op. He will not be snapping this spring. Kenny Canham is a little over a month post-op and is looking great with that left shoulder. And as good a year as Ken had last year, he wasn't able to do the things in Coach Gentry's area they wanted to with that shoulder, so we went ahead and did the surgery, and I think you will see great things out of him. Braxton Pfaff is about 4.5 months out. He'll be able to do individual drills out there. Maybe near the end of spring we can progress him to full. Another hard worker. Sean Hulskamp, who tore his ACL in the Ohio State game, he's 5.5 months post-op. So as you guys know, he's right at that golden mark right now. So he'll have his brace, do individual drills. He'll get into a lot of activity out there, but will not do any 11-on-11. Kyle Fuller is about 3 months post-op on his left wrist and is doing great. He had a great checkup with his doctor. He'll have a brace on out there. He's another pull guy. He'll be out there wanting to go against the wide receivers. We got to make sure he doesn't get out there and do something crazy and re-injure that. So we'll keep a close eye on him. Other than that, we just had a couple guys have a couple little things here and there, and we got a couple starting out there in blue today, but should be fine. And we don't look forward to being a eventful spring.
Concern probably for us in spring is getting our offensive line together. They got a couple of young guys. We got to have some young guys not play like they're young guys. A couple of new guys there at center, and we feel great about them as far as their athletic ability. Experience means a lot in the offensive line, and we just don't have it totally. But guys like Taylor and Conte, they're great leaders in there. They got that toughness that you like, and I see our offensive line going more in that direction. I think with our tight ends, Malik and Hodges and Klein, we got guys that they can block inside, but they're good enough to be in space and get mismatches. I think we've got to do a good job of how we use those guys. You know, one of the big things in spring practice is not so much the starters, but who the backup guys are going to be with. And a lot of times you know the starters, and so, you know, this list, and he's got it's a little too long, but I think giving some guys some chances there to figure in and how much they're going to figure in, it's a good opportunity for them. So.
Homemade noodles. Marty, stop it. That reminds me, maybe we should try a new form of birth control.
Bedsider.org has birth control information and a lot more. And it's...
What do you think, though?
So this week, I'll be joining Ricky in a discussion about the start of spring football practice, how baseball and how softball did this weekend. So football's finally back. Let's talk about it.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes, it's been a sad couple months without pigskin.
Yeah, and I think that the Hokie fans should be pretty confident about the way the team's going right now. There's a few things that you need to worry about, replacing some starters on defense, but overall, I think the roster's going to be decent.
I think it's going to be an interesting spring. Well, let's start with defense. So the main people we have to replace are our safeties.
Yes.
Kaishan Jair and Dietrich Bonner are gone, and they've been starting for 3 years. So who do you see as stepping into those roles?
Well, I think Chuck Clark might end up moving to safety, which is something that I didn't really expect. He actually performed very well at the cornerback position last year, but they're thinking about maybe using him at the free safety spot. But even if they don't use him, they've got a lot of guys back there. You've got Darion Green, Adonis Alexander, who's a freshman early enrollee guy, C.J. Rivas, who's a little bit more experienced, and a few other guys too. It's just very, very deep, and now they just need somebody to really kind of step up and take over.
Yeah, Bud Foster did say he's thinking about putting Chuck Clark there, which I think might be a good fit for him, because once our corners get fully healthy again, we'll have more depth there. Of course, they're going to be struggling this spring without Fuller and without Faison, both out with injuries. But I think Desmond Fry could also be a good person who could play rover safety back there for them.
Yeah, and another guy's Anthony Shagog, another guy who can provide a little bit of depth. But like you said, until the cornerback position, you get a little bit healthier there. Your two top guys are both hurt, and you're not sure what they're going to be like when the fall comes around. So it's probably best to just keep them out of spring.
Yeah, I think it's important for Donovan Riley to have a good spring right now, because he's the only sort of corner we have who's really healthy, who's gotten a lot of time. But it'll be good for the younger guys like Terrell Edmonds, who might get to see some more time next year.
Well, that and for Donovan, too, he needs to prove that he can keep his job.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of guys behind him, a lot of good 3-4-star recruits that are going to be pushing him. And if he plays as well as he did last year, I think he'll be okay.
Of course, when it comes to the secondary, we shouldn't be too worried because our secondary is always amazing. But sort of the defensive line looks like it's going to be pretty strong. We've got Daddy coming back. We've got Luther coming back. Ken Aikman is out for the spring, but he should be back hopefully by fall. And he's got some good guys behind him who will get more reps this spring, like Seth Dooley, who will be more prepared than if they need to step in later on.
Yeah, and one guy I'm interested to see what they do with is Melvin Kine. He's kind of small, but they said he got stronger. He just didn't really get a lot bigger. He's about 210 pounds right now, which is not enough beef to play up front. So I'm interested to see if they move him maybe to linebacker, or if they're going to keep trying to play him at the defensive end spot. But I'm very excited to see Luther Matty come back. He's very good. He's great at plugging holes in the middle, and they really missed him last season.
Yeah, losing him last season was hard, but I'm sort of happy he's still around this season. I think our D-line's going to look really strong with him and Daddy there, and of course Ken Aikman, who's really stepped up and performed well this season.
Yeah, Kenny Cannon really showed me a lot. I was very surprised by how he was able to come out kind of off the radar and really provide a dynamic duo off the corners with Daddy Nicholas. And one guy that really needs to step up this year is Corey Marshall.
Yes.
With Luther coming off of an injury, Corey Marshall needs to take leadership of that defensive front, especially in the middle, and he's got the talent to do it.
He has the potential. He has the athleticism. He just needs to buckle down and I think just be serious about it, and I think he can do big things.
Yeah, and speaking of defense, now at linebacker without Chase Williams, Andrew Matua-Puaka, how is he going to do?
I think he's going to do great. I think Chase was injured a little bit this season, and he looked really good. Matua-Puaka needs to maybe step up more leadership-wise. Linebackers, you need to be pretty vocal. And I think if he can get that, he's going to be one of our next great linebackers.
Yeah, because he was a redshirt freshman last year. More experience always helps, especially at the middle linebacker spot. So it's something that's really, really vital in Bud Foster's defense.
And Bud Foster is really high on him. He's very excited. He's already said that, Andrew has that spot for next season. That's pretty big to say that this early.
Yeah, and not to mention he's got some help on the outer linebacker spot in Deion Clark, Ronnie Van Dyke, who's coming off of a few injuries. He needs to really prove that he can play. I mean, he came into Virginia Tech as a good recruit, and he's just dealt with injuries almost his entire Tech career. So this is almost maybe the last straw for him.
Well, and so Derek DiNardo had that spot for a while last year, and he's gone now. Ronnie Van Dyke had that spot almost before Derek did, but then he got injured. Mm-hmm. So it'll really be interesting to see if he can step back up to the level that he was playing at almost 2 years ago, I feel like.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see also if maybe they bring one of those safeties down, and someone that's maybe a little bit bigger up top who can maybe provide a little bit more beef at the linebacker core. I think that's maybe a possibility.
I think it might be, but I think right now they're focusing on Ronnie, and I think he's looking good. Bud talked about him a little bit preseason and some stuff that they sent out to us.
Yeah. And then for the offense, of course, for how confident are you in Michael Brewer coming in?
I am not confident at all in Michael Brewer. Loeffler already said the spot is completely open to whoever wins it. I sort of think in the end Brewer might end up winning it. But I think Motley's going to give him a run. I think Andrew Ford's going to give him a run. And I think Durkin's going to give him a run.
Yeah, he said, you have to have a pecking order, and Brewer obviously occupies that spot now.
Well, actually, on the depth chart, him and Motley are listed as equal.
Yeah, and unfortunately, though, Brewer didn't really play well enough last season to kind of solidify that spot. Yeah. So he needs to have a very good spring because he's got 3 guys behind him, in Durkin, Ford, Motley that are all hungry. They're all talented. And if Brewer kind of slips up, he's not going to be there for long.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting spring with, once again, a quarterback competition where we're all watching really closely. That's not, of course, the only spot they're going to have competition. Running back, we've got a lot of good potential there if everyone can get back healthy again. It could be a big competition between JC, between Trey Edmonds, between Shy McKenzie, maybe not so much anymore, but between Williams as well.
Yeah, they've got a lot of talent. There's talent literally everywhere in that backfield, but it's just a matter of who's going to be there. Yeah. Is Marshawn going to be healthy? Is Shy McKenzie going to have his legal troubles handled? And is he going to be healthy? Remember, he also tore his ACL last season. Is Trey Edmonds going to be healthy? Is his leg good? He seemed like he was healthy last year, but he didn't have that explosiveness that he had his freshman season. So there's a few questions there, but I think even if they can't, if there's a couple guys that aren't there, they're so deep at that position, I think they'll be all right.
Well, because of all the injuries last year, the depth really, everyone really got experience. So that could be definitely a helpful point coming into next season. I think Trey Edmonds, if he can be fully healthy, because he was never really fully healthy last year, he can take the spot. He has more experience. He has the explosiveness, but also the big body where he can block where JC can't. So I think it could be his spot to lose as long as he's healthy, which right now he seems like he is.
Another thing, too, is Sam Rogers, the guy who had a few carries at the end of the season at the running back spot. He fractured his elbow against Virginia. Guy still played a couple plays after that. They're saying they're having to hold him out of spring practice. I mean, he's just an animal. He's so into football. And they need to hope that he's ready to come back and provide even more depth at that spot.
Well, and I think anywhere he plays on the field, he's just a good guy to have out there on the field. He's a leader. He works so hard. He's inspiring to the other guys. So even if they have him more in a blocking position, more in fullback, he's just a good teammate that they want on the field.
Yeah, and that point you made about blocking I think is really important because usually when they were in the shotgun last season and third down, if it was a pass, Sam Rogers was in there. And he usually wasn't in there to catch passes because he's a good blocker, he's got good fundamentals, good technique, and that's always important to have at least somebody like that in the backfield.
Of course, what's vital for running backs is a good offensive line.
Yes.
Last year was not a good year for offensive line, and we lost 3 seniors. So it'll definitely be interesting to see if we can put together some kind of, something.
Yeah, for me, the two guys that really need to step up, one, Jonathan McLaughlin got hurt last season. He showed a lot of talent his freshman year. That opening game against Alabama, he held his own as a true freshman at the right tackle spot, really held his own. And then Wyatt Teller. I think it's about time for him to shine. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's getting bigger. He's getting stronger. He's getting faster. And from what the coaches are saying, he's taking on a leadership role. And I think that's really important as a guy that's young, that is willing to say, hey, look, get on my back and let's go to the promised land.
He seems like just a fun guy in interviews and everything. I want to see Wade Henson. He's going to be a redshirt senior. Yes. He should be the leader of the offensive line. I want to see him step up and just help the offensive line come together and create a strong defense that we can use so that if we have Michael Brewer back there, he doesn't get sacked every single play.
Yeah, I think one thing that'll benefit Wade is that he played in those last few games last season after Jonathan McLaughlin got hurt. Experience always helps, especially for a guy who didn't get a lot of playing time early in his career. But like you said, redshirt senior, you have to step up if you're on the team.
Quick shout out to one of our friends on the show, Darius Redmond, former tight end, moved to offensive line, so we could be seeing him a couple times next season as well.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be able to get there and get some reps in, and who knows, maybe he fights for a starting job.
Well, speaking of tight ends, we have tons of them, and they're all awesome. So that's going to be great for next year. We have Malik, we have Calvin Klein, and Bucky Hodges.
Yeah, and for Bucky, as long as he gets his legal troubles taken care of as well, then again, it's a small thing.
I think it'll be
fine. So, but Bucky, he's really one of the best tight ends in the nation as far as I'm concerned. He's a matchup nightmare. No linebacker or safety can cover him. He's too tall, he's too fast, and he's too agile. I mean, he's just a great athlete. He's got great hands. He should be the focal point of this Virginia Tech offense for this year and next year.
Especially when we're in the red zone. Just look for Bucky in the end zone, and it's a touchdown. That's all we need.
Yeah, it's not that hard when you've got a guy who's 6'6", 250 and can run like a gazelle. I mean, it's
easy to spot him, too. He's got God's gift tattooed on his arms. But speaking of catching the ball, new wide receivers coach, so we'll see how that plays out. With, of course, we have a lot of young talent at the wide receivers.
Yeah, Isaiah Ford should really take on a kind of a leading the ACC in this year in receiving. He's got that kind of talent. We saw it last year. He's agile enough to play with screens. He can catch on those, which we all know Scott Leffler loves. He's also got the speed to go hit you deep. He's great on third down. He's got good, reliable hands. And I think him and Cam Phillips as a duo, I think that whoever plays quarterback has plenty of weapons.
They definitely have plenty of weapons. And really the key is Cam Phillips and Isaiah Ford. You can't just double team one of them because the other one will get open. And they're both, my favorite part about them, they can make the sideline catches, like the incredible sideline catches.
I think one thing, though, is who's going to play the slot receiver for them? Willie Byrne, gone. Joshua Stanford, gone. Who takes over that role?
Well, they have Kevin Asante back, who was off the team for a little while.
Yeah.
I think he's sort of could step up and take that position. And they also have, he's been here for a while, he's a fast guy, maybe not the best at running routes, maybe not the best at catching the ball, but he's got a lot of speed. Maybe he could step up in those other areas.
Another guy, too, with a lot of speed is Deion Newsome. We see him a lot on jet sweeps. If he can maybe improve his route running and improve his hands, he could be a really, really big threat from the slot.
Well, I think we have talked everyone's ear off about Virginia Tech football. And it's still, 7 months away?
Yeah.
Maybe 6?
Can't get enough of it.
You can't get enough of it. But moving on to what's happening now, baseball. The baseball team did not get swept by Clemson this weekend, though they were close to being swept.
Yes.
It was sort of a disappointing outing. Not disappointing, but they didn't play, I think, as well as they could have, especially on Saturday. It was not a good game for them.
Yeah, and it seems like they just can't put it together. Either the hitting's there and the pitching's not, or the pitching is there and the hitting isn't. You know, if you're going to win games, especially in the ACC, you have to be able to put those two together.
You definitely do. One person who is putting those together is Alex Perez right now, senior. Right now he's playing shortstop, but he is hitting like crazy. He's hitting .343, and so right now, Ricky Surham, who's normally playing their shortstop, is out. So they have Alex, who is a very versatile player. He's now at shortstop. They've got Eric Payne, who's now at second base, and then they put Ryan Tufts in at third base. So everything's getting switched around right now, and it actually looks really good. Ricky Surham wasn't having a great season with batting-wise, and so now taking him out sort of puts more firepower in the lineup.
Yeah, and another guy too. It's helpful to have Sage Jenko leading off the lineup. He's a great trendsetter. He gets on base, he can steal, and he's just a very astute batter, and that's something that's hard to come by in college.
Sage Janko has just been so consistent all year. Another guy who stepped up recently is Rakeem Cooper. He had the walk-off win against Clemson so that they avoided the sweep, and he's been batting a lot better, and they have him in second in the lineup now, which is a big improvement because he wasn't playing very much earlier this season.
Yeah, and it was really important for them to avoid that sweep too against Clemson, who you can't get swept by a conference team, or else that's just going to keep hurting you in the standings.
As Coach Mason said, it's a big difference between 4-5 and 5-4, which is what they are now in the ACC. Okay, so softball also had a big competition this weekend. They took on number 10 FSU, Florida State. Unfortunately, they got swept.
Yeah, I was at the third game, and that was hard to watch. I mean, Michaela Aiken pitched very well for 5 innings. And then, unfortunately, in the 6th inning, the wheels fell off. Leadoff walk, which, as you know, if you follow baseball or softball, nothing good happens after a leadoff walk. And then an error, like I said, happens right after that from Bailey Little. And then they end up scoring 4 runs in that inning. Maggie Tyler comes into relief and walks in a run. Sometimes it just snowballs on you like that, and it couldn't have come at a worse time.
Well, and Saturday they had 2 really close games with them. I think Sunday they just sort of gave out and were done, because on Saturday they both went into eighth innings and lost both of them. And sort of talking with some of the players and coaches, they were saying it's more the pitching that they're having some issues with at the very end of the game than the batting, because the batting has been really on fire recently.
Yeah, and to take Florida State though into extra innings, that's kind of an achievement in itself. You never like to have moral victories, but if there ever was one, I think that would be it. You had a lead on them, you just couldn't quite seal the deal. And I talked to Bailey and Michaela after Game 3, and they said that even though they got swept, even though they gave up 3 leads in 3 games, the psyche of the team is still where it needs to be. Yeah,
they were playing FSU, is ranked 10th in the nation, yes. So it was a really good team, and it's not like they played miserably against them.
And what's kind of the funny part is that Tech was 25th coming into the series. They lose all 3 games, and they're 24th. now. So, I mean, I guess you get rewarded for playing good team stuff.
I have to call you out, Ricky. You said they weren't going to be 25th after this weekend.
Yes, I did. I did not think they were going to be ranked after losing 3 games to Florida State, but I stand corrected.
You do.
Damn, Rachel!
So as Ricky and I mentioned earlier, the baseball team hosted Clemson this weekend. VTTV was at every single game to keep you updated. The Hokies started out their series with Clemson with a 4-0 loss in 10 innings on Friday. The first game was the definition of a pitching battle. Both teams only had 6 hits. The Tigers were able to get the win in the top of the 10th when the Hokies walked 3 straight. Then Clemson's Chris Oakley hit a grand slam. Sean Kiselka started on the mound and went 8 innings without a run, while Luke Scholzer came in for him and then pitched the 9th inning and part of the 10th inning. He took the loss for Tech. The second game on Saturday was more of an offensive battle. The Hokies scored 1 run in each of the first 4 innings, while the Tigers went off, scoring 12 runs by the end of the 4th. Clemson added to their lead in the 6th with 3 more runs. While Tech was able to get 2 runs in the 7th and the 8th, it was not enough for the comeback. The Hokies lost 15-8. Aaron McGarity took the loss on the mound for Tech, going 2.5 innings and allowing 6 runs. The final match of the series was the closest. It went to 12 innings and ended with a walk-off single by Rakeem Cooper. Clemson started off Sunday hot, scoring 3 unearned runs in the first inning, but the Hokies' defense buckled down and did not allow any more runs in the game. Tech had 1 run in the bottom of the 4th when Kyle Wernicke grounded out to bring home Sage Jenko. The Hokies had another run in the 3rd when Eric Payne scored Alex Perez off a single. Then in the 8th, Tech tied up the game when Payne scored off of a wild pitch. In the bottom of the 12th, Cooper reached a fielder's choice, bringing Wernicke home for the walk-off win. Chris Monaco got the win on the mound for Tech, pitching 1.1 innings and only allowing 1 hit. Tech went on to have 2 midweek games in English Field this week. The baseball team also hosted Norfolk State on Tuesday. I was there to give you an inside look.
I thought the veterans really showed the confidence today and coming back after the 4-run inning they had. And we knew we could come out and smack these guys tonight, but we just didn't show it early on. Once they put up that 4 spot, we knew we had to turn it on right there, and we got lucky, and we really did.
We don't want to look at it that way. We just want to come out and treat every game like, we're playing the #1 team in the country. And obviously sometimes, even in games where you're playing great teams, you're going to have lulls, and I'm just happy that we responded the way we did.
Oh, it's just that the 6th inning on the mound I wasn't happy with, but I thought we threw the ball well. We played good defense, and we were kind of on the brink of getting some runs. And you know what? I'm actually happy. We give up the 4 runs, and we answered right away with that. It kind of showed a will to win there. So I'm not dissatisfied. It was kind of an ugly game in general, even though it was only 1 error, and I actually don't even not really sure that that was an error. That ball had some funny spin that brought Joe back to the line on. So it was a sort of clean game, but it was ugly. I don't know. I don't even know if that makes sense.
Yeah. For you on this edition of Tech Till Access. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Don't forget to tune in next week for more hard-hitting sports action.